this episode of Ditch Digger CEO, Gary Rabine hosts an inspiring discussion with Stuart Landesberg, founder of Grove Collaborative. Stuart shares his journey from growing up in a sustainable household to building a leading company in eco-friendly consumer products. They explore the challenges of starting a business, the importance of sustainability, and the strategic decisions that helped Grove grow exponentially. Stuart emphasizes the significance of maintaining a mission-driven culture, preparing for economic cycles, and taking care of employees. Tune in to learn about creating sustainable products, navigating investor relations, and the journey towards making a positive environmental impact.
All right. Hey, Chris, we're going to have a good time today, buddy. We've got an amazing guy on board here today to share his story with us. Stuart Landesberg from Grove Collaborative. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but Stuart is building a great business and really a leader in sustainable consumer products. And you know what? We all know how important that is to us personally, our families personally, as so many things have complicated that, in my opinion. But Stuart, welcome to Ditch Digger CEO, buddy.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Stuart, we want you to tell your story, buddy. We're all about telling the stories of people that have some abnormal success. We really look for people that lead their industries, and we've found you to be one of those characters that understands how to use your passion and lead your industry. And so we want to just tell your story, talk about where this all began. You could start as a young guy, a young child, or your family life at home as a young person. You could start wherever you want, in college education, after. We just want to hear you tell your story about how this amazing organization, Grove Collaborative, came about, and you personally, how you find leadership and how you make an impact in leading. So take it away, baby.
Pleasure. Well, Gary, you'll find me to be a very much of an open book, and I feel like I've just been incredibly fortunate, incredibly blessed in the journey that I've had since, I guess the whole way, right? But in particular at Grove, the company we've built and the influence we've had helping families find healthier products, more sustainable products, making that easier, making that more affordable. It's really been a joy. But, I didn't grow up thinking that I would become a founder of a public company, anything like that. Grew up in a small town in sort of suburban New York, very much of if you think of a normal American upbringing, I think that's probably about what that would describe my household well, except I got to give my parents credit. They understood before most that we had to take a little better care of our environment we were doing, right? So, we were the only people on the block with a compost bin in the backyard. I think I was 14 before I realized that all paper towels weren't brown. And it is a true story that as a sixth grader, I was precocious then. I wrote a English paper about how I wanted to be the CEO of the biggest company in the world. But I identified the biggest company in the world as Seventh Generation, the cleaning products company. Because, one SKU from Ford in the driveway, one SKU from Coca-Cola in the fridge. You open the basement and there's like 700 cleaning products from Seventh Generation. So that was the household that I grew up in.
Wait. So seventh grade, you kind of had a vision of being a CEO of a large company focused on a lot of the similar stuff.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of, it's weird when I say it now, but I guess, you plant that seed early. It really got stuck in my head.
I love it.
At the time, I wasn't thinking about margins or competition or supply chain or any of the very real things that I came to learn about once sort of actually began chasing that vision. But yeah, I had the belief early on that, and this is really core to Grove today, there are a lot of products out there that are better for your family, better for the environment, work better than oftentimes more expensive conventional products. Just people don't know to buy them. And that's really what Grove is all about. How can we build trust with the consumer and use that trust to introduce them from innovations that we create or that brands that we endorse create? Because that improves the lives of our community, of our customers, and also leaves a lighter footprint on the planet, which is really where we're going. So,
can I ask you this question? Is this like consumer products, meaning nothing commercial. Like, in other words, is it any B2B products that actually are great commercial for commercial products or commercial customers as well, or no?
We have commercial customers, but core, if you think of our core business, it's hand soap, dish soap, laundry detergent, paper towels. We've more recently moved into wellness. So you could think of hydration and vitamins and baby care, pet care, everything in your house that's basically not food. That's a consumer packaged good. We see that whole category as one that's been reliant on chemicals that are not really good for human ingestion and not good for the environment, and based on single-use plastic packaging, which we have to move away from single-use plastic packaging. And one of the things I'm most proud of is Grove. Actually, our own created brand, Grove Co., is the largest home care brand that is what we call beyond plastic, but effectively has a majority of our products without plastic or with a significant reduction in plastic.
Okay, so explain that really quick. That single-use packaging, not to be single-use packaging. So tell us the downside of that and the alternative that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So picture your laundry room growing up, and I invite hopefully your listeners are doing the same thing. Picture the laundry room in your house if you're like most Americans. Most of us are picturing at somewhere in that room a cabinet or a shelf, basket filled with plastic tubs, right? Plastic tubs of laundry detergent. And most of us are picturing the same brand because loyalty in this category is incredible. But if you look out 20, 30, 50 years, it is literally impossible that we're going to continue to use single-use plastic at the rate we are today. We're already approaching the rate in the next few decades where there will be more plastic than fish in the oceans. There's plastic in all of our bodies. There's plastic at the deepest part of the ocean, in virgin Antarctic snow, and in unborn babies. I mean, there's plastic everywhere, and it's not good for us. So we have to change this. But if you think about those companies that make those big plastic vessels, they're all making a ton of money. That big laundry detergent, that big orange jug, it's mostly water, incredibly high margin. They've got literally billions and billions of dollars in plants that make petrochemical derived laundry detergents and put them into plastic jugs that are mostly filled with water, so they can sell mostly water to you for $15. I mean, it's a great industry for them. But for consumers, you can get just about the same efficacy, and in some cases actually better efficacy, with bio-based products that don't rely on some of those petrochemical derived ingredients, and you can move away from plastic. So in laundry, that means laundry sheets, laundry pods, and liquid, which is 85% of the laundry market, you can do in aluminum. And so Grove offers all three of those formats. We also make ours super concentrated. So you buy, a 13-ounce bottle, takes up less room space in the laundry room. It's cheaper through the supply chain, etc. And instead of having the giant single-use plastic, you have a aluminum bottle, which is infinitely recyclable. And it's a win across the board. So we spent a lot of time building out products that are better than whatever you grew up with and have a better sustainability footprint.
So aluminum bottles, give me some other examples.
So aluminum bottles is a great example. Another great example outside the laundry room is you can sort of do the same thing if you picture underneath your kitchen sink, right? Just a sea of plastic bottles. But if you take whatever you're using to clean your countertops, whatever you're using to clean your windows, laundry detergent may be 85 or 90% water. Those products are, the window cleaners are like 97% water. So we sell a reusable glass spray bottle. It's beautiful. It comes in a lot of different colors, match your decor, etc. And you can use it forever. And then we sell 1-ounce concentrates, and you just add the water at home. The whole system has no plastic at all in it. And you get a better quality product because the more compact form factor costs less money to create, so we can put more money into higher quality essential oils, higher quality cleaning agents, etc. But you get a better quality product at a lower price with a lighter environmental footprint. And what you miss is, instead of every time you finish a countertop cleaner throwing away a big plastic bottle, you've got a little 1-ounce glass bottle that can be recycled. And glass, like aluminum, is infinitely recyclable.
That's really cool. Okay, so when you think about this, what is there's I guess what's the pressures on the old school industries to change? I mean, It's just that they've got so much invested in the production of their plastics, and so much invested in this old school industry that they just can't change. Is it that they have enough lobbyists paying off legislative bodies to where it just they're not worried about it changing, and therefore they just stick with the old school? Or what are your feelings for that as far as why?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why major industries don't get disrupted, even if it's better for the consumers and better for the economy and environment as a whole. And a lot of it has to do, as you said, with embedded interests. And so if you think about the amount of marketing that goes into these existing brands, it's tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars that get spent building these consumer brands.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a real education component. For example, most people believe that plastic recycling works, but only about 5% of plastic actually ever gets recycled, no matter how much you put in the bin. And of the plastic that gets recycled, it can only get recycled once or twice. And the energy to recycle plastic is extraordinarily high. So if you look at the true life cycle impact of recycled plastic, in many cases, it's actually just as bad or worse than virgin plastic. Whereas you take a product like aluminum, it's a little bit more expensive. It requires a different supply chain than the one the big incumbents have. But aluminum is infinitely recyclable. Something like 70% of aluminum that's ever been produced is still in circulation, and you get 97% energy recapture.
Wow.
But you need to come at it from a different lens and without the embedded investment.
So let's okay. So those recycle, when we recycle, and then, every garbage company now has the recyclable, containers that you fill with your recycled products. When you think about that, if let's just say that 70% of people do a pretty good job separating that recycle from the garbage, right? Of that, and with plastics, of that, only like 5% actually get recycled.
Yeah. It's because most plastics, if you go all the way back to the history of the plastics industry, the idea of plastic recycling was created by a large petrochemical company in the 70s and 80s, not as an environmental solution, but because they saw people were phasing out of styrofoam. Remember when we used to use styrofoam? Everybody was like, this is obviously terrible for the environment. I feel guilty throwing away the styrofoam cup. And styrofoam, like plastic, made of petrochemicals. So the petrochemical companies were very proactive and said, we're going to create a story that allows people to not feel guilty for drinking an infinite number of plastic bottles or whatever, using single-use plastic everywhere. And it worked. But it turns out the recycling doesn't actually work. Just the story is really convenient in helping good people feel okay about this decision, which is actually counter to, I don't know you that well, Gary, but I would guess, we all care about our Earth. I can see that behind you, there's like nice nature, like nobody is pro plastic waste, right? Nobody wants more plastic in the oceans. Yeah. So like, why do we do this? It's because we haven't been educated on the truth. And is there a big vested interest in preventing us from being educated? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hundreds of billions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now that's incredible to think about that. That 5% actually gets recycled. And then when it is recycled, I think you mentioned that maybe one time it gets recycled on average, or that's all it can be recycled before it's done.
I mean, it depends on the actual quality of the original plastic, but in general, you can't keep recycling plastic. So if you get a product that's recycled plastic, it's hard to make that into another recycled plastic product, because every time you recycle it, it's sort of like the quality degrades, and eventually it ends up in like a deck chair that's not recyclable. Whereas aluminum, you can literally use 500, infinity times.
That's cool. All right, so let's hear about your entrepreneurial story. Okay, 7th grade, you had kind of a little bit of a vision, right? And then through high school, what were you doing? And then did you go to college? And tell us a little bit about that story. And then any mentors and people that gave you the confidence as this young kid that you could do whatever, you could accomplish whatever you want in this world.
So, high school and college were fairly unremarkable. I was sort of like a normal, good student, not super exceptional, but tried hard, did pretty well. Didn't know what I wanted to do after college, so went into finance, worked in investment banking in New York for a little while. Actually worked at a bank called Lehman Brothers, which, hopefully many of your listeners are old enough to remember what Lehman Brothers was. Worked there before it went down. And then went and worked at a big private equity firm called TPG Capital out in California, but really had always maintained a connection to sustainability and a belief that that is sort of where I would end up. And even I remember in college, this is a little bit of a silly story, but if anybody here has ever, and any of your listeners have been to college, they may recall having been at a party where many single-use plastic cups were featured. I'll just say that was a part of my college experience. But even when I was in college, there were compostable single-use party cups. And it used to drive me absolutely insane that everybody bought the plastic ones when the corn-based compostable ones were just right there, just literally sitting.
So am I guessing you weren't a fan of Toby Keith's song "My Solo Cup"? I lift you up, right?
I mean, you can have the same product, just doesn't have to be made of plastic. I'm here for the product. I'm just like not trying to make anybody put down their like their beer. I'm just saying, right? Like you can drink the beer and not feel guilty afterwards.
Yeah. Cool.
It's like, anyway, so yeah,
That's
it
funny.
tells you a little bit about like who I am, that even in that environment, I was like, hey, I might have gone through a solo cup or two myself, but like, why not a compostable alternative? But then I sort of, grew up, got into business, ended up working at a big private equity firm, and worked in both consumer and internet, spent a lot of time in the grocery sector. And I learned, and I'd always been like, why don't the sustainable brands have bigger market share? They're not more expensive. The product works just as well. And then I learned, I was like, well, the way the grocery supply chain works means that it's very hard for disruptive brands and smaller brands to get shelf space. They don't have the awareness. I mean, there's 100 different reasons why. And this was the early days of e-commerce, 15 years ago. And I sort of said, maybe I can start a business that'll make it really easy for people to get products that are better for their families and better for the environment. And, I think I was 26 or 27 when I started Grove. And I would say I have never known more than when I was 26 or 27. I think that was the peak of my hubris and know-it-allness. And so like an absolute idiot kid, I just looked at it and I was like, I don't know, I've done all right in the first 5 years of my career. How hard could this be? A lot of people are starting consumer internet businesses. And I think those are probably the both dumbest and smartest words an entrepreneur can say. Because it was
okay. Wait, the words are
how hard could this be?
How hard could this be? Yeah.
Right. Because, at least for me, I had totally naive assumptions about how digital marketing worked, how competition worked, what the margins would be, how reliable a supply chain would be, what labor costs would be, how easy it would be to negotiate with big carriers, all the way down. And so I started the company in 2012. I mean, I knew nothing, just to be clear. If I want you to picture somebody who's like basically a suit that cares about the environment, but knows absolutely nothing about starting a consumer products company. I gave the company the worst name possible, not on purpose, to be clear. I just picked a terrible name. We changed in 2016. And
what was the name? What was the name originally?
I don't even like to say it, Gary. It's too bad. It's too bad. The name was ePantry. ePantry.
What were you thinking, man?
I don't know. Well, it's not the sexiest name I've ever come up with. Grove is better.
Absolutely.
It turns out you can learn. But the first 4 years were absolutely terrible. I went from having had a good job to, I think the average salary I drew over those first 4 years was like 30 grand. A bunch of times I paused my salary, like reach into my savings account to fund payroll. I mean, it was terrible. And I don't know how many burn down analyses I did of like, okay, who do we have to fire first? Yada. I was terrible. And then it was sort of like, I remember crunch time in 2016 came. We were about to run out of money. We were trying to raise our first sort of real institutional financing round. I think I pitched 173 different investors, and all of them said no. But I distinctly remember, and so I'm 4 years in, right? And if you go do an entrepreneurial sort of like venture, I feel like you have a promising career, you do a year or two to start up. If it doesn't work, that's cool. What a good life experience. If you spend 4 years that goes from being an interesting experience to potentially bad judgment. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on the line, and I had an amazing co-founders, amazing team. I mean, I can like go back and feel in my body the pressure to like deliver for these people who devoted a better part of their productive years to me. Oh, it's terrible. But in 2016, we'd gotten 173 no's. I still have the like tracker spreadsheet on my computer. And I called up one of the firms that had said no. And I was just like, I called the lead partner, this guy, Paul Martino. I was just like, Paul, there's got to be a price. There's got to be a price at which you'd do this deal. There's got to be a price at which you'd fund the company. And Paul, to his credit, he's a great guy. He just said to me, Stu, you don't want to have this conversation with me. But we did have the conversation, and he was fair. He was really fair in terms of the price. I mean, he priced the business at like, I think about $10 million or something like that. And we ended up getting that round done. And that was the turning point. We went from, $1 million a quarter then to $100 million a quarter at our peak in the next 4.5 years. But it was so not obvious that was going to happen. So that was a real turning point. And then, business went through an amazing hypergrowth phase where, I can talk in more detail about this. I'll sort of let you pick the parts of the story you think are most interesting.
Okay. Yeah. So Paul was the first investor?
No, we'd had some smaller investors. I mean, in the early days, sort of me and my colleagues, I put a little money in, mom put a little money in, like anybody. I think the smallest check I took was like $2,000. I mean, I was raising money from cats and dogs on the street, like anybody, because, if you're an entrepreneur and you have the ability to focus on your business and then raise money and then stop thinking about raising money and then focus, that's way better. I never had that privilege. We were always about to run out of money. And so we just constantly raising for 4 years.
So back then, back then, 2016, you raised on a $10 million valuation?
Yeah. I mean, I should look. I think it was 11.25 million.
And it raised about $1 million or something like that?
No, that was it started as $1.5 million, but it's an amazing thing about investors. Once you get some social proof, the round ended up being $5.5 million, with a number of really amazing other investors coming in. Next View Ventures out of Boston, couldn't say enough good things about them. MHS Capital out of San Francisco, amazing partners. Phil Nadell at Forefront Ventures out of Florida, just really terrific people ended up coming in. And I've had such amazing partners, and a lot of them joined the company right around then in 2016.
So all on about a $10 million or $11-12 million valuation, wherever it came to $11 to $15 million valuation, basically.
Yeah, 15 post, 11 something pre, or 10ish.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but something like that.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, about that. Wow. Okay. And then, and what did you sell them on? How did you give them a vision that you could go from $1 million a quarter to even let's say, I don't know what the vision was, 10 million a quarter, 20 million a quarter? What was your vision?
I've always believed that we could go big, like somewhere deep in my soul. I still believe, right? The company's still a few $100 million of revenue today. And I still believe we're just getting started. I mean, these categories are hundreds of billions, if not trillions. And they are all reliant on single-use plastic. And we are still the market leader in zero waste, right? This is a change that has to happen. And if you're not a customer, I could not recommend, this is where I get to give a plug. Go to the App Store, download the Grove app, go to grove.com. You will not regret it. It will make this part of your life better.
So the potential of this market is just tens of billions at least, and probably a lot more than that, right? I mean, maybe a trillion, like you said. Okay, and yet at a few hundred million in revenues annually, you're the market leader.
Well, people aren't invested in zero waste, right? They're invested in whatever they've done before. So that was a part of the pitch. I think the other part of the pitch was we understood the math of our business extraordinarily well. We could say, even then, we have extraordinary customer loyalty because people who try, they stick. The products are great and they really work, and the pricing is fair, and the customer service is exceptional, and the shipping is fast, and people loved the service. And so we could show good customer loyalty. We could show that we were disciplined and understood how to deploy capital and get a strong return on that. And we showed that we had a really, I think, not just a good sort of long-term premise, but really strong discipline around understanding how we would grow. And ultimately, one of the things that allowed us to grow so quickly is we were fortunate to raise a ton of capital. But the reason we were able to raise a ton of capital is we were always extraordinarily clear on the parameters through which we were investing and why that would lead us to profitability and continued growth. And I think that combination of big vision and supreme command of every financial and operational detail of the business was enough to push people into, selling toilet paper on the internet is not exactly like, the sexiest VC idea, but it was enough.
So tell me, can you give me your, let's say your 1 minute elevator? It's 2016 and I'm blessed. I invest in a lot of different startups and different businesses, and as well as I'm a majority owner of 15 companies today that I continually reinvest in, and my CEOs have to convince me of why to reinvest in them if we're not hitting the numbers we want or whatever, right? So tell me, and again, I've got probably 15 or 20 companies I'm a seed investor in, and some great successes, some not so much, but they're all led by people I respect, and I love their pitch. I love the passion of their pitch, right? So if you think about that, go back if you can, this 2016, just a general idea of that pitch you gave to that person, in 2016 that you knew could afford to invest $1 million, $2 million in your business.
Well, first off, congratulations, Gary. You sound a lot like a Warren Buffett style investor, and I have so much respect for that. But if you take growth, the pitch hasn't actually changed that much. But look, if you look out at consumer products today, the category is about $2 trillion globally. Home and personal care is about $180 billion in the US alone. This category is entirely based on single-use plastic today, almost entirely. And if you look out over the next several decades, it is fait accompli that is going to change. These changes always happen. Look back 50 years ago, there was almost no single-use plastic. You can see that consumers evolve. And the obvious evolution here is away from petroleum-derived ingredients, which we know are bad for people, and away from single-use plastic packaging. And the big companies have such an embedded investment in legacy technologies that they are not investing. And if you look at what Grove has done, is we built the biggest community of people who care and who are curious and who are learning about these products. And we can work with our customers to develop the next generation of products like we talked about earlier, zero waste laundry sheets, aluminum packaged dish and hand soap, right? Concentrates for your window cleaner and your countertop cleaner. Nobody looks at their window cleaner as like, I want to pay for all this water. These are obvious innovations, but they're not in the best interest of incumbents. And we have the largest community, the best assortment, the best innovation, the best customer reviews, the strongest brand, and are in pole position to be the winner in this category of zero waste home care products, which, by the way, are extraordinarily high margin. And that is a multi-decade opportunity, the winner of which will receive tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of market share. And I think that's an opportunity worth playing for. And we've got an extraordinary team that is extraordinarily committed. Now it's true in 2016, and nothing that I said has changed from then to now.
Stuart, that's an awesome pitch, dude. I mean,
you're nice to say that.
I cannot imagine how people didn't say, absolutely, I'm in, right? Within like the
first 173 said no, but
first 30 seconds. Yeah, but you refined that pitch, I guarantee you, as you went on, right?
Oh my God, I look at that first pitch deck. I was a far cry from that.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so tell me, like profitability, an investor wants to know okay, this is all great, man. It sounds really cool, and environmentally, it sounds great, and for health, it sounds great. Now, how are we going to make any money at this, Stuart? And you kind of mentioned that it actually is profitable, right?
Yeah, business has been, so we're a public company. You can go and look. We've been adjusted EBITDA profitable the last 3 quarters, generated positive operating cash flow a number of those quarters as well. But that was not always the case. And I think, a mistake that we made at Grove, and a mistake that many companies made, but I feel personal accountability for this as the CEO over that period, was we overinvested ahead of the curve, which is to say we were not frugal enough, and we built for scale. And we built for scale too aggressively. The business was growing so fast. I mentioned we went from, $1 million to 100 million a quarter in like 4.5 years. We just assumed the business would keep growing at that rate. And look, the pandemic put a bunch of things differently. I mean, who knows? But we really overbuilt infrastructure, both physical and personnel, which meant that post-pandemic, we had to make a lot of really hard changes and in order to get profitable. And that was, among the hardest, if not the hardest thing I've ever done as a CEO, is look at our company, and we had way too many exceptional people. Every person that we had to part ways with is still someone I think of so highly. And yet we had hired too many. And I think a lot of CEOs, just like me, and a lot of boards, just like our board, in a very well-intentioned fashion. And I should actually give our board credit. Many folks on that board were conservative, some were go. I mean, you never know, but in that environment, there was a real incentive to step on the gas. And
so tell me this, when you think about this, Stuart, because I mean, I think very much the same way. I use the term world-class. It's a term I've used since I was 10, 15 years in business, and I wanted to be the best in the industry. I'm a very competitive guy. So anything I did, it was for a focus to be world-class. So I looked out found the best engineers I could find in the world to be mentored by, to hire, and then really invest in the best products in my industry, to most innovative products, to be the best in the world. Now it took me probably 25 years before I could say we were really world-class, one of the best in the world at a few things that we did. And today, 43 years later, we've got a bunch of products that we believe there's nothing like us in the world and the stuff we do, right? So when you do that, as you just said, I'm building a team right now to build we have a company that's building AI to assess the condition of real estate all over the world. We assess the condition of pavement quality, roof quality, facade quality, now landscapes. Okay. And so every one of these products is built in with our search to find the best minds in the world in engineering and the science of each one of these facility services, right? Kind of a boring thing, you would think. But when you find the best in the world, they're passionate as hell. They strive like we do to be the best, and they're noted by the industry as like best also, right? Best in the world. And so when you find those people, though, man, you will build something special if they're as passionate as you are about building it, right? Okay, so now lastly, I'll tell you, I in the last 2 weeks, and my son, who's a CEO of our technology company, we're building the best team in landscape architecture, in best arborist, best turf scientist in the world, we think, so that our customers, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, Prologis, Blackstone, all know that when they use our technology, our AI-driven technology, it's not built by Gary Rabine, the guy that loves pavements. It's built by the team of best-in-class, world-class engineers, architects, and landscapes, right? And so, but guess what? If we had a crunch in the economy, exactly what you're saying, these are expensive people, right? Not only do they are we giving them a share of the upside, we're also paying them a lot, right? And so, just like you said, I mean, when things go to heck in a handbasket, right? You can't afford to pay these people, and you probably got to downsize for a period of time. So I'm feeling exactly where you're at and what happened, because I know for sure we had the same exact challenge in 2020, and we will have the same challenge again in 2025 if this happens again, right? So I respect where you're going, but I think you're right on. Find the best people in the world you can, and know that in crunch time, you're probably going to have some dieting to go on and painful dieting to go on in a crunch. But I love what you're talking about, what you're doing, because you're world class for a reason. What's the terminology you guys use? Use anything else but world class? Because my son, the technology people, world class is it's an old terminology. It's not it doesn't sound cool anymore, right? So how do you guys think of that?
It's funny. I'm a big believer that language really matters. And so I think every company has to create their own language. And so we are very impact focused. Our vision statement is that consumer products can be a positive force for human and environmental health. That is how we think about it. And so we want to have the biggest impact we can, which means having the best people we can. And so that's the way it makes sense for us, because
Sure.
Our goal is not to be the best in the world, although I 100% respect the way you put it. Our goal has always been have the biggest impact you can have. And so I think every company, I believe, has like a germane mission, and the more you can bring it out, because one of the things that you didn't say, but I imagine you've mastered even just sort of in a few minutes of talking to you, is we went through this really hard time to get the business profitable, and now the business is profitable. Incredibly strong leadership team. I think we're right sized, but it's harder sometimes on the people who stay than the people who go. And I shouldn't say harder. I mean, it's really hard on both, but it can also be hard on the people who stay. Obviously, it's very hard on the people who lose their jobs. And so as a leader, taking care of folks on the way out, making sure they're set up, severance, healthcare, ready to get their next job, and also making sure that the people who are still there keep the focus, keep the fire, because people aren't going to stop using dish soap, right? Plastic is not going to stop being a problem, and people aren't going to stop needing landscape evaluation or whatever. I'm so just don't know exactly what the industry you're in quite as well, but I think there's something to leading through cycles that is necessary to create enduring companies, which I really do think is what we strive to do at Grove, and I think is where a lot of the long-term value gets created, both for shareholders, for employees, and for consumers, right? If something happens in year 20 that you didn't know in year 1.
Okay, so something you said there I think is so important for leadership, right? Taking care of people on the way out, and because this exact same thing happened to us, right? We had to downsize. This was actually 2015. Lost all my net worth personally. We had 2 businesses that cost us 2 business of losses, cost us an enterprise value and debt about 80-90 million dollars, right? So basically lost everything I had personally at the time, personal net worth. Didn't claim bankruptcy, but boy, we had our challenges, and so we had to downsize in a big way from a 225 million in revenues and 10 companies to $60 million in revenues in 3 companies, right? And it was painful as heck, but taking care of those people on the way out, sent the message that we care. Okay, then the people left had to want to stay on, really want to stay because they believed in us, right? And then if any of those people did leave, they left on better terms than they ever would have otherwise, because when they left saying, Gary, I just don't know if we're going to get through this. I found another job. I'm going to give you, a month's notice, 2 months notice, whatever you need, right, on the way out. So I'm confident that what you did there so taking care of people on the way out, in my opinion, will inspire your team members and your leaders to take care of you on the way out, right? If they're leaving you at any time. And so that culture is a great, I mean, it's expensive culture, right? Because it's going to cost you on the way out, but in my opinion, it pays off 10 times over when you do a great job of that. So congratulations on that, because that's another thing you got to be aware of, right?
You're nice to say, my friend. I mean, it's a lesson I learned from the people around me, and so I should give credit to our current leadership team now too. So I'm no longer the CEO of Grove. We hired an amazing exec who had, you talked about bringing in the best in the world. I have enough love for Grove that I recognized that there was somebody who was the best in the world for our current stage, and I was delighted to bring him in as CEO. I'm now his partner as executive chair. But one of the most exciting things to me is, I always talked when I was CEO about culture is bigger than one person. And I think there's something really, if I wanted to do something that was anti the culture that we created, right? Not impact focused, not kind to our people, the company just sort of wouldn't let it happen. And, we brought in this amazing new CEO, and it's been so exciting for me to watch the culture even get stronger after I've left. And I think it's a really wonderful, it speaks well of you as a leader, and speaks well of any leader who can say, it's not any one person. It is the culture of an organization to allow it to thrive with, I think Jeff, who's our CEO, is doing a terrific job. And I also am hopeful that in, 2 decades, whoever the CEO is, will have a wonderful, thriving culture under them.
So what stated core values you guys have? Do you have stated core values, and what do they look like, and how do you live by them?
It's an interesting question. We've had our values, excuse me, on the wall for a long time. and they range from values around inclusivity. We're all about our people and everyone is our people, to trust. We give trust quickly, but don't take it lightly. And, without running you through all of them, I think what we always strived to create was a balance between, and this I think, comes to the people that the company attracts and the company we want to be, a balance between sort of an impact-focused organization and an organization that aspires to compete at the highest level with some of the largest and most aggressive companies in the world. And so, a portion of the values seek to make sure that everybody feels comfortable contributing and we respect our colleagues. And also we expect everyone to play at the highest level, the absolute highest level. And
I like it.
And I believe deeply that, mission-driven business, just because we care about our mission and we're here to talk about the environment and all these things that are not money, doesn't mean we get a free ride in the global economy, right? We're competing with giant companies with billions of dollars of excess free cash flow every year and billions, tens and hundreds of billions. It is such a hard industry. And so you have to outwork. And so for us, that really is the yin and the yang that I think has created a culture of people who want to make change, but also who thrive on the privilege of working hard in an endeavor that matters.
I like it. I love it. And I love the idea, competing at the highest level, because, as you're in an industry, everyone gains an understanding of what is the highest level, in my opinion, right? And who are, the gold standard customers, right, that you're going after. How do you compete to gain those customers, right? It's a moving target, but if that's part of your culture, that we're going to compete at the highest level, you personally have to compete at the highest level, right? It's easy to understand when people aren't passionate enough to do that, and that's really exciting when you see your team all wanting to do that, right? So I've never heard that as kind of like we're very competitive nature in the leaders we have. We strive to be world class at what we do, but competing at the highest level really says it all, right? Not that let's say the public out there understands what that means, but boy, your leaders know what it means. Your leaders can inspire others to understand what that means, and I think that's a great statement.
Yeah, totally agree. We often say grow, and look, you said something brilliant before, which is if you get the best people and the right people, good things happen. And for us, the secret to attracting the best talent is there are not that many places where you can go and have the sustainability impact that you can have at Grove, and also play in the bigs from a professional standpoint, right? And for people who still want to be in the big leagues, but also really want to leave the world a little better than they found it, Grove is an amazing fit. And we've found such amazing people sort of in the oversection of that Venn diagram. And for what it's worth, I think we've probably excluded a lot of jerks who care more about money than values, right? Because what I just said is inherently values driven, right? It's inherently unselfish, which gets into everything from, how do we treat someone if their kid is sick, if, they need to take a medical leave, whatever, right? Policies matter there, but also who are the people on your teams, right? Are they compassionate? Are they unselfish? Anyway, I just couldn't say enough about the importance of mission in building a sustainable high performance culture.
Absolutely. No, you've got such an amazing product that if people want to be in this, if they're passionate about your industry, passionate about your business, they're going to have a lot of the core values that we look for in people, right? And you naturally are going to get them. And we're paving concrete, paving asphalt. We're doing all this dirty construction stuff, right? Now we do look for sustainable, methods to offer our customers, and we lead in that space. But our industry is not quite like yours, right? Your industry, you're focused 100% on this, so you're going to get those people that care, and you're going to get more people that really have that long-term vision of what how to make the world a better place for their kids and their grandkids, right? So that's really cool.
But I will say, Gary, that I think any business can be a mission-driven business. I have a good friend who runs a hardware storage company, right? Like you need a big machine to store a bunch of data. He sells it to you, not to like you and me, but anyway, people who buy that stuff. Yeah. And the business gives back a tremendous amount to underprivileged youth in India who don't have access to education. It's important to the founding team, et cetera, et cetera. And so this business has an amazing mission that has nothing to do originally with their product, right? Every business, I think, can and should and needs to be in service of, I don't know, greater goals. Like our planet, our society has so many problems that need solving, right? All of us have, I think, a real opportunity as business leaders to look out and say, we're making the pavement smoother. We're helping our economy run better. Like you travel the world, a lot of places where the pavement is not smooth. And like, I don't know. I do not take our good roads in the U.S. for granted anymore.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. Mentoring other people and CEOs, our own CEOs and others, right? Some of our businesses have some really cool causes that actually within the business can serve some pretty cool needs, right? And our slogan, because I realized back, this is in the 90s, that if I can differentiate from my competition who are bigger than I was, who are, had more money than I had for capital investment, I would say, how do I differentiate from them, right? And I kept asking myself that question. How do I differentiate and deliver, some type of value add? And as that was my question, that became my slogan, discover the difference. And my slogan was, for my teammates was, your goal, our goal as individuals and as a company is to discover how we differentiate from our competition and deliver better value to our customers, right? And that was cool because my teammates continually think with me, hey man, I got a great idea, right? And then eventually my customers said, what does this discover the difference mean, right? And I could say, let me tell you the things we do different than those people you're using competitive to us, right? And that was great because we continued to have some great differentiating stories, right? In the services and the products we delivered. So that's gone crazy. And in the last 20 years, we've become the most innovative in our space, using the first to use 3D technology to pave big parking lots in concrete, right? And the best at it today. When we talk about paving, $5-10 million parking lots, we use 3D technology. We extrude concrete out of the back of a machine, all led by a 3D station on top of that machine, right? And it's an amazing process. But again, that then became, how do we do these assessments better, faster for our customers, so Walmart understands how much they're spending and if they're spending in the right places, on the right materials, on the right products. And that became my son saying, Dad, we can use drones and artificial intelligence and do it way faster. And we built a team for that, right? But bottom line is this. I believe that's all great. And all that stuff is very important for us as far as profits and serving our customers. Our slogan became 4 or 5 years ago, innovating to serve, because we're not only wanting to serve our customers, that's how we stay in business, but we need to be conscious of how we serve our teammates. And then almost as importantly, in my opinion, is we need to be conscious of how we serve our communities. And the way you do that better than anything else, in my opinion, Stuart, is you start a little foundation. My wife was my late wife, who passed away about almost 4 years ago. Her thing was, she constantly wanted to serve the communities with any money we made, sometimes spending more money than we had in a year, than we made in a year, right? And in doing that, we eventually said, we got to get organized in how we do this, right? So we started a foundation in about 2005 called the Rabine Group Foundation, that today is called the Cheryl Rabine Foundation. But that foundation has grown. Our goal is to invest over $1 million a year in causes that serve the community. And we're not there yet, but we're almost there. We'll be there in a couple more years. But the fun thing is, we have our teammates that are involved in this foundation. Of our, let's say, 800 teammates across the country, probably 20 of them serve on the board, and probably another couple hundred of them serve in the capacity of doing things in their community for children, for elderly, and for veterans, right? And it's so cool to watch what they do to make a difference in their community. But I believe, when we started this, we're a pretty small company. We were maybe a $6 million organization, right? And I believe any organization, whether you're a $500,000 year organization or you're a $500 million year organization or $5 billion organization, should have a foundation. Because even if you're selfish, like some people might be, I don't think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are selfish, in my opinion. But even if you're selfish, it definitely, in my opinion, pays off as we look back at the quality of teammates we have. Because if they're the type of people that want to serve their community through our foundation, they're also the same people that want to serve those people next to them. They're also the people that want to serve our customers. And in my opinion, they're also the type that want to innovate to be the best, as you say, to compete at the highest level, right? And to serve everybody around. Because in serving, we gain so much more in our lives, and in my opinion, in our souls and our lives, than if we're being served, right? And so, yeah, I love what you're doing, and I want to know more about where you're going in the future, and if there's anywhere I can help you, I want to be of service to you when it comes to any customers, any people you need to meet, because I've got a very large network of great people in big industry today, you know.
Gary, that is mutual. I loved everything you said, and I look forward to hopefully a long friendship. I could not have enjoyed this conversation more.
I love it. So, hey, okay, Chris comes in about now, and Chris kind of might have a few questions for you, and then we like to go over kind of, lessons that we've learned and things that we think created this amazing success for Grove and you personally and your team.
Yeah, Stuart, an amazing story, man, like super inspiring, and I think we're about the same age, so tough for me to hear because I haven't quite reached the height that you have. But kudos to you. One part of your story that really inspired and impressed me was, you got 173 no's. If my assertion was, hey, I think it's good to breathe, air, and 173 people were like, no, that's not true, I'd be like, maybe they're on something here. How did you maintain your confidence in this business after 173 no's?
It's a great question. I think the core of it, I think there's three things. Number one, preparation, right? Are you expecting all yeses, or are you expecting mostly no's? Because 173 no's and one yes is success, right? The second thing is, do you have the right people around you? My team, particularly my co-founders, never stopped believing in me. I don't know what those guys were thinking, but they never stopped believing with me, and I love them to this day for it. And the third is, do you have the right personal support system, right? Whatever that is, spouse, partner, community, you name it. I had amazing friends, mentors, girlfriend, now wife, like all around me. And I don't think without any of those pieces, I would have had the mental resilience. But, I had the saying, the only way out is through. And I just believed that I would get through because that was the only way out.
Yeah. Awesome. Follow-up question. Any advice for finding good mentors?
I would say find the people that you like and admire and just try to be friends with them, right? I think mentorship is like, it's when somebody who knows a little bit more than I do, enjoys hanging out. And I get more from those types of casual but really enjoyable friendships, and they last decades, right? And they are, now some of my most cherished relationships. I learn amazing amounts from them, but I also think of those people as dear friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. You mentioned going from $1 million in a quarter to 100 million in a quarter. That's 100x growth in a quarter. What drove? What were like the primary driver or drivers of this growth?
I think the thing that allowed us to grow so rapidly was we really understood how to reach our customer, and we really understood what our customer wanted. And so we were able to take something that worked, and I had a lot of conviction. We were able to get investors to have conviction that it was repeatable. And so we repeated it, and we repeated it, and we repeated it, and we repeated it. And I think, there's a tendency in business to fix something before it's broken. And we did not do that. We probably should have spent more time on innovation, but we were correct in scaling up with a process that was, I think, great for our customers and great for us.
Awesome.
What I got, Stuart, can I get a question, Chris? What's, if I could, Chris, what got you focused on going public instead of maybe selling off a bigger chunk to a big PE or something like that?
So two things. The first is we're not done with our mission, right? And being public allows us to continue to pursue it. And the second was the opportunity to partner with Richard Branson. We went public in partnership with Sir Richard Branson, who has a deep commitment to sustainability, a deep commitment in particular on plastic, because he's very involved in like the oceans, which are really impacted by plastic waste. And if you're driven by how do you have the dual goals of creating returns for shareholders and creating impact for the environment, with I suppose third leg, creating impact for your communities, that became a no-brainer choice from a partnership perspective. And we still enjoy a wonderful partnership and relationship with Richard and the Virgin Group today.
Awesome. Now, did you partner with him before going public, or
as we went public? So he sort of endorsed the IPO, bought a large stake in the company, and they continue to be good partners on the other side.
That's awesome. I love it. Chris, any more questions?
Awesome.
I'll finish up whenever you're ready, Chris, because I got a few things.
Yeah. No, those are all my questions. If you want to do your takeaways.
Yeah, no, takeaways for me. I mean, I have many, but taking care of the people on their way out, right? In my opinion, will inspire people to take care of you on their way out, right? I think it's important, and we find that as we've matured in business over the 43 years I've been in business, that's so important. You expect people to give you good notice when they're going to leave, but boy, you know what? Why would you? If you don't expect to give them great notice and take care of them on the way out, why would they, right? I love, compete at the highest level. Simply said, not often easily done, right? But I'm confident that, that kind of if I steal that now, because I'm getting pressure on my old world-class slogan, okay? If I continue to get pressure, I might tell these guys I'm gonna steal this one from Stuart, if you don't mind, Stuart. Right?
By all means, just tell them they have to download the Grove app.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to do that anyway. Right. All right. And then I think that was really cool. And then, think that this is a $2 trillion, base business, right? Or industry, right? Of single-use plastic products. That's amazing. I mean, that's a huge market cap that you just touched the tip of the iceberg on so far, in my opinion. That's really amazing. And the opportunity for you to continue to grow this. I love what you said. Hey, we're not finished yet, right? You went public because you're not finished yet. I've got a couple businesses I have that could go public. We could actually position ourselves to go public, and I would say that both of them are businesses we're very passionate about. That I would say we're not finished yet. There's really cool things we're doing in those industries. I don't need to pull out the capital, but if it was something that we could actually make a big difference in the world by going public and staying on for longer, that makes great sense. And I've never really heard it said that simply, but boy, that makes perfect sense. And then the last thing I would say is to think that only 5% of plastic actually gets recycled. I would imagine. I think most people would imagine much more than that. When you're putting that garbage out to the street and you're particular about making sure the plastics are on this side and only garbage on this side, right? We're doing all that. We think we're doing it all the right way, and then we realize that maybe only 5% is getting recycled. Boy, that would demotivate a lot of people. I would think that, and most people don't know that. So that's interesting. That's more incentive or more inspiration to really look into what you're doing and try to do more of it. So that's awesome. But you're an awesome guy, and I really enjoy meeting you and listening to you as a young entrepreneur and a young CEO that you are. It's incredible what you've done already, and it's going to be amazing when you get to be an old 60-year-old dude like me. The difference you're going to make in this world is going to be incredible. And so I want to be there as a friend anytime you need me, if I can help you in any way. And I'm for an old hillbilly that barely made it through high school. I have a lot of really strong relationships with some leaders in our country, and I think leaders that would really care about what you're doing. And I think many of those will be listening to this podcast. But we'll get information from you offline. But I'd love to get your cell number. I'll give you mine, and if you ever need anything from me, I'd love to help you out. Okay.
Feeling is 100% mutual, Gary. It's been such a delight.
Chris, anything else you got for this cool dude?
Yeah, Stuart, where can our audience find out more about you and Grove?
Grove.com, or you can download the app, and that's the best place to see it all. And yeah, couldn't recommend it more highly. If you have any questions, my email is sl@grove.co, so you can email me your feedback.
Hey, one last thing. What type of leadership groups are you in? Any type of leadership groups like YPO or CEO or anything like that?
I do YPO, and I have a wonderful executive coach I've worked with for 8 years, which is an investment, but one I highly recommend.
Amazing. And also, I want to connect you with my son, who's probably about your age, that is also YPOer, and really somebody that's always reaching out, and you know, he's a sponge. He's always learning more and more about, you know, not just our industries, but how people do other things. So love you for you to meet Austin sometime as well.
Be fun to trade notes. Would love to do that.
Awesome. So nice to meet you, brother. We really
You too, my
appreciate your
friend.
time. We really appreciate your time today, Stuart. Thanks so much, man. Thanks for
Pleasure.
being on DDCEO, and look forward to talking to you more in the future, brother.
Be well. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
See you, man.